A global namaste to everybody. Welcome to today's broadcast with the Hindu Academy team. My name is Nishit Kotak, and I'm your host for today's session. So today, if you're new to the broadcast, let me just quickly run down how this broadcast is managed. We run for about 50 to 55 minutes. We start every Saturday at 2 o'clock UK time. And we start with a focus topic. Today's topic is going to be how India is the mother of spiritual democracy. We are celebrating India Republic Day very shortly on the 26th of January. And we will be looking at how India's come up as a force for good in the world. So once we've done the focus topic video, we will have a little discussion around it. And then we will open up for general questions and answers on anything to do with Hinduism. Now, how can you get involved? Well, it's very simple. You can help us share the broadcast with your friends and family so they can join in on the conversation. Share your thoughts, comments, and questions about India and Republic Day in general, or anything to do with Hinduism. You can also follow us on Facebook or YouTube on our channels, Hindu Academy, on both platforms. And you can just leave your thoughts and your comments on the live chat, and we will pick it up from there, and then bring your questions to be answered live on air. So without wasting any further time, let me just share the focus topic video of today, which is an excellent video. I'm sure everybody's going to enjoy this one.
You see, despite what appears to be a scattered enterprise, means so many different things kind of combined together, mishmash of different ideas, different gurus, different swamis, despite all this mishmash, and despite the appearance it gives that everything is in a mess, really what this religion is reflecting is this plurality. It allows every individual to relate to the idea of spirit or his own human condition in his own personal manner, depending on his own background, his family background, his sectarian movement background. These are all very important. So vast number of different approaches to spirituality are visible in the modern Indian scene. This is not something negative. This shows the openness of the system. But whenever you have a very open system, is open to becoming very confusing and conflicting sometimes, because there are different ideas, they can't sit well together. So this is the price we pay for spiritual democracy. It appears in a mess. But look, I am very optimistic. The present, if you like, the stirring up that I see in modern India gives me tremendous hope that all this variety of different movements, which seem to be completely at loggerheads with each other, like scattered, in the wind, will somehow come together and produce a marvelous mosaic, a marvelous tapestry of many different pathways for exploring spirituality the world has never seen before. I am, like Swami Vivekananda, I am very optimistic about the future of India. Because at the moment it seems to be in a very degraded state, in a mess, thoroughly corrupt in every sense. And yet underpinning this, the human beings, the people at the grassroots level, are sincerely, seriously spiritual by nature. And this is beginning to stir up. That's why we have this change of government. It is, if you like, the spiritual underpinning now saying enough is enough. We need to now refocus on a deeper vision regarding what we are all about. So already I can see a movement happening naturally. It's not just one individual or one particular political party. The nation is stirring up. So all this nonsense that has been parading as secularism the last 50, 60 years is going to be spat out. To be, this is a nuisance. It doesn't fit with our temperament of the Indian nation. We need to refocus on the spiritual ideals that we focused on for thousands of years that kept us a single civilization. No other civilization has lasted this long. And the reason is we always aspired to higher principles, higher, not material things and, expanding our empires. Other empires have come and gone. And we have survived because we never focus on this material gain. We focus on the higher principles. And this nation is beginning to become awakened to this idea. So all these different scattered enterprises that don't seem to fit well, I'm telling you, I'm really very optimistic. Within 10 years, will suddenly seem to kind of fit in like a jigsaw puzzle. Different individuals have different, if you like, aspirations, different ways to relate to spirituality. Suppose you belong to a sectarian movement. This has already given you a direction to follow. in order to make spiritual progress. Nothing wrong. Suppose you like to think of God not in as a sectarian, like a God in the heaven, but a God in humanity. This too is a powerful way of relating to spirituality. Suppose you say, I don't even want to believe in all that. I just want to see what's the nature of reality. What is this in front of me? Again, here, this is like a science-oriented worldview. This too can be reconciled by the breadth of vision of what our religion is all about. And this we are going to rediscover, not in end of this century, I'm saying with an end of this decade. Within a few years, these things will become mainstream. And I'm very optimistic about the future of India.
Brilliant. So there we have it, folks. I'm going to just share for those of you who are not very conversant with what we're talking about in terms of India Republic Day. So I just share a little bit of information. So India celebrates its Republic Day on the 26th of January every year. It's to mark the day when the Constitution of India came into effect in 1950. And it's a national holiday, and it's celebrated with great enthusiasm and patriotic fervor, across the whole country. And the main Republic Day celebration usually takes place in the national capital in Delhi, New Delhi, where a grand parade is held at Rajpath and featuring a display of India's cultural and military heritage. The President of India, who's also the chief guest of the parade, unfurls the national flag, and the national anthem is played. And the parade also includes floats representing different states from India, showcasing their cultural heritage. So India is often referred to as the mother of spiritual democracy in the world. And this is because the country has a rich spiritual tradition dating back thousands of years. And this tradition has played a major role in shaping the country's democratic values as well. So, for example, the principles of non-violence, tolerance, respect for diversity, which are core to India's spiritual tradition, are also core values of democracy. So additionally, India has had a long history of peaceful coexistence and acceptance of diverse religions, cultures, and beliefs. So the country is home to people of different religions, ethnicities, and linguistic groups. And democracy in India has ensured that all these groups have equal rights and representation. So diversity is respected and celebrated, making India a shining example of a democratic society that is inclusive and tolerant. In short, India's Republic Day is a day to celebrate the country's democratic values and its rich cultural heritage, which is deeply rooted in the spiritual tradition. So to kick things off, I'd like to invite our panel. Today we have full house. We've got Manish Bhai, we've got Sita Ben, and we've got Vijay Bhai. Welcome to the call today. And viewers, let me just share that today is also Vijay Bhai's birthday. So make sure you send him your best wishes. And Manish Bhai, over to you. I do have a couple of things. I will pop in and out with some questions, but I'll let you get started with the show for today.
Thank you very much, Nisit Bhai. Wonderful topic, very close to my heart. India, mother of spirituality. I'm not sure if many of you have heard this song, from Purab Paschim. Hai preet jahan ki reet sada main geet wahan ke gata hoon. Bharat ka rehne wala hoon, Bharat ki baat sunata hoon. Such a wonderful song, and it I think it's got a spirit of India, that where the tradition, it's a tradition of love and acceptance of everyone. And that is where the India comes from. And we had this wonderful, gem of spirituality coming from India, a mother of spirituality. Swami Vivekananda said, India is a source of spirituality for the whole world. If India dies, the spirituality goes with that. So India is so important for the spiritual health of the world. And when Swami Vivekananda reached back India after, visit of America, he said, now India is like a pilgrimage is so close to my heart. And what is so special about India? Let's find out in today's session. Vijay Bhai, over to you. What is so special about India? Why did Swami Vivekananda say it's the source of spirituality for the whole world?
I think that there's one thing I must say. I'll give you my own example. When I was young, I hadn't been to my own home state in Kutch for about 10 years. And then when I went there, I just felt totally different. There is something strange about India in the sense that you just feel the spiritual vibe when you go there. I remember Swami Vivekananda, in his biography, said that after spending, as he mentioned, in America for so many months, and then he said, even the very dust of India is now so sacred to me, I can't wait to go back. I think the key thing is the whole Indian ethos has been the idea of aspiration of man. And as Jai Bhai keeps on reminding us, the resolution of the human condition. It's in India that particular kind of angle of thought has taken place. Because if you look at many other belief systems in the world, it's basically idea of you believe in this God. It's a characteristic policy. Either you believe in it, if you don't, I kind of beat you, right? And they're very communal in this idea. But India is very unique in that sense because it actually aspires for man to go to a spirituality. And it reminds me also one of the sayings of Chanakya, the great teacher of economics in Takshashila. And he also mentioned that, it's only in India that a man can become a god. Yeah. So just through sheer deeds and through sheer, meditation and spirituality can actually become a god. And that is what is really special about India. Everyone has the potential to become a god. And I mean, the other thing I must say, you can see some very, very fundamental differences with other beliefs in the world. If you notice in India, everything is divine. River is a mother, mountain is also, divine. Even a stone is divine, a tree is divine. I know even in my village, we have trees in the village square and they put this nice red string around it and people go put water in it. Why? Because India sees divinity everywhere. And it's not like something, so in effect, it makes you feel that actually the whole world, the whole idea of divinity comes alive in India. And that's something very unique. As Jai Bhai mentioned, there is no idea of, trying to force people to a particular belief. People believe as what suits them best. And that's the best way to make spiritual, progress. Respect everybody for their own beliefs and how they progress. Don't try and force it on somebody else and say, either you believe this or you burn in hellfire or, all these other load of nonsense, sorry to say. But India is so unique. And you can feel that vibe when you go to India. So it's very special like that. Sita?
Yeah, sorry, my lighting's a bit funny. I'm in the car today. Yes, so I mean, I completely agree with Vijay Bhai. There's something incredibly special about India. And Dad often says that in a way, India was very lucky because it was very temperate conditions. It was very mild. We had, free, beautiful resources of nature to utilize. And we weren't fighting with the forces of external nature, which is what you get in Europe in a lot of colder countries. People had to focus their energies outwards, whereas with countries like India, we had lovely warm weather, we had beautiful fresh clean water, we had all the beautiful resources, so we didn't have to fight with nature external. We were able to focus our energies inwards because the whole point of our sort of human experience is trying to make sense of our human condition. Who are we and what is our place in the world? And when you look at the sort of external world, you think, there are all these forces out there like wind and fire and all of that. And we're sort of battling against that. But we didn't really have that in India so much as it is in other countries like in Europe and all of that. So we had the luxury to say, who am I? And rather than looking outwards, we were able to look inwards. And we had this amazing journey of introspection. And what we're discovering, which is what Dad dedicated his life for, was this idea that actually what we are discovering through all this incredible scientific discoveries in terms of quantum and consciousness, and through this study of the external world, we're coming to the same conclusion as to what the ancient rishis of India had discovered through their journey of introspection and meditation. The insights that we gained were absolutely incredible, and they sit very much in line with modern cosmology, modern neuroscience, modern physics. So I think it's absolutely incredible. The power of the mind, the power of introspection is something that we definitely can't underestimate. It's something beautiful. It's not just some fluffy, airy, fairy, dream-like state that, you know, atheists would claim it is, because the conclusions are the same. And, you know, even the crassest atheist would have to say, look, you know, there is a real synergy here. So I think it's really beautiful that we were able to discover it without all of this gadgets and gizmos of the external world. We were able to discover something amazing.
So wonderful to hear, Sitaben, Vijay. You know, India is so special. And the fact is, the pluralism is so ingrained in Indian psyche. Growing up in India, you know, I have seen my grandma passing by a, you know, a kind of a dargah, and she would say, let's bow down here, and we would go and bow down. And this is seen even in Ajmer. You know, now if you go, there are many Hindus who go to this Ajmer Sharif, and they would offer the chadar, the bedsheet there as well. And you know, ancient Christians persecuted Syrian Christians, they found a home in India. Jews persecuted came to India and found a home. Same again, Parsi. And this is so special. You see such a special world welcoming everyone with open arms and not letting everyone continue their religious tradition without imposing any tax or any rules whatsoever. It's so special. Vijay Bhai, what's your take on it? How is pluralism so fundamental to Indian psyche?
Oh, you're on mute, Vijay Bhai.
Yeah, thank you. So I think Manish Bhai, you're absolutely right. I mean, the idea of pluralism is actually ingrained into the psyche of every Indian in sense. It's not only that we are ingrained, it's part of a historical tradition, ancestral tradition. It's been the case for thousands of years in India. I mean, it is so, I think sometimes we actually don't realize the value of it. It's got tremendous value. It just means that you don't have to follow somebody or live in fear that if I don't follow some particular branch, I'll be in trouble. And that's the biggest freedom you can actually get, right? I mean, you can imagine all the guys, all the ones you mentioned, all the people who came to India, the early Christians were persecuted. The earliest Jews, when General Titus destroyed the Jewish temple, they came to India as well, and they got refuge. Because India has always accepted that every person will see spirituality differently, and they'll follow the path which suits them best. And we've always been accepting. It's not even that. I mean, you'll be surprised. Even in the time of World War II, we had a situation that the Polish people came there as well. You'll be surprised. The Polish community in Gujarat as well who came. So they didn't have to live in fear and practice whatever they believe they practice. So it's been a tradition of India, primarily because we believe in the idea of pluralism. So pluralism is tremendously powerful. I would say personally, any religion who says that if you don't follow my path, you're going to burn in hellfire, think twice. But this is what has been used around the world. It's a very means of control, right? You control people. I mean, people do all the time in class. If you don't do as they say, I'll beat you with a stick. And thank God India did not take that path. They said, everybody go follow your path. And that's a very, very kind of I would say it's almost like a human right in my view. Very special idea that India has. Sita?
Yeah, so I mean, this idea of pluralism is so ingrained in our thinking that, you know, it just feels like the most natural thing to have a variety. The Western countries are very good at their sort of political democracy, their social democracy, but I think that's what we sort of specialize in, is this idea of spiritual democracy. It's so incredibly ingrained in our system that, you know, any individuals who are sort of persecuted, any individuals from other nations, other religions, are happily able to sort of synergize into the Indian sort of population and they were never sort of forced to convert or change their religion or anything. They were not ever told to compromise their beliefs. And it reminds me very much, Dad often used this example of the Zoroastrians. And I think there was an example of the king, I think it was somewhere in Gujarat, and he said, to the Zoroastrian people, why don't you sort of synergize with us in the same way that milk and sugar synergize together, and you can't even tell them apart, but they make the whole thing much nicer. So I think we really recognize that bringing in people from other religions is actually very enriching. It's actually very beautiful because it shows the magnanimous nature of spirituality. It's not something narrow-minded, something that you sort of restrict to only this particular narrow route. We say actually spirituality is majestic, it's beautiful, and there are so many ways of becoming spiritual.
That is so wonderful to hear, Sitaben. Just to remind viewers, political democracy was also there in ancient India. There were, democratic states like Vaisali and others in times of Buddha or before that. So the democracy, where they were electing their own leader, and it was a democratic tradition in a way. So even the political democracy was there. And as we know, the Vedas, Rig Veda saying, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti, the pluralism, wonderful message is there. And so did India invented the numbering systems, backbone of science. And all the progress was made in ancient India, in medicine, and in arts, culture, sculpture, and numbering system is what makes today's science possible. Sitaben, are you there for this question? How did, is India also the source of modern science? Vijay, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think the thing is, one thing to keep in mind is that India, I mean, it was an endeavor, a spiritual endeavor. Science or mathematics was seen as spiritual endeavors. Is endeavors which actually enrich you. It was not just something you do because you want to make more money or you want to build less. It was enriching. That's why if you notice one thing, as you mentioned, Manish, by the idea of building sculptures, that is a skill was used not just to build beautiful images, to build images that are spiritual. So most of the knowledge gained from the sculpture, you notice, is actually was used to build huge temples to enhance people's spirituality. I mean, as a matter of fact, if you look at, we have the 4 Vedas, and then on top of that, we got the 4 Upavedas, they're called. Upavedas are the supplementary text. We have something called the Gandharva Veda for dancing, like that. The Dhanur Veda, which is for martial arts, warfare kind of stuff, Then you got Sthapatya, which is for architecture, and Ayurveda. And they are called Veda as well because they are divine knowledge too. So in effect, all this knowledge, mathematics, science, even if you look at the works of, say, Aryabhat or Bhaskaracharya, and if you look at their works, even the way they write in a spiritual kind of tone, mathematics in a spiritual, it sounds so beautiful that even science is seen as a spiritual endeavor. The writing as well is actually spiritual. And that is so special about India, that even every endeavor, everything we see is a spiritual endeavor. So I'm not surprised at the idea of numbering, all these great discoveries of mathematics will come from India. They're all seen as very endearing endeavors, not just for material gain, for personal spiritual progress too. Sita?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if you look at any sort of aspect of life, if you look at words, or if you look at numbers, or if you look at symbols, they're all ways that we try and get a handle on reality and try and make sense of the world around us. And actually what we discover is behind all of these symbols and numbers and words is the same spirit percolating through everything. And I think Dad often said there's this philosopher called Wittgenstein, and he said the more sort of numbers and words and symbols that you are able to understand, able to grasp, the finer your grasp of reality. So in a way, like having this huge variety of words and numbers and symbols, and being able to understand them helps us to get a better handle on reality. And hopefully by getting a better handle on reality, we can see beyond the physical, we can see beyond the material, and see that it's actually the same spirit that's percolating behind everything. And if you think about it, all of these symbols and numbers and words are so incredibly important in helping us to get a handle on the infinite. And we have this, the Sanskrit word is pratik, symbols, because they are things which help us go towards the idea of spirituality. And we often think, oh, you know, symbols are something that are just sort of, you know, we allocate it to the realm of religion and it's just a religious thing, but we use symbols all the time. We use symbols as like pi, we use infinity, we use adding and multiplying and subtracting. They're all symbols to help us understand how the world works. So I think the more symbols, the more words and numbers, the better. And I think that's really reflected in our approach of spiritual democracy. If we can have a richer way of understanding this very sort of ethereal subject, all the better. And I know Swami Vivekananda often said, the many more paths there are, even better. It's something to celebrate, for humanity to celebrate, because then there is more field of choice. There is more variety for us to be able to pick and choose the path which suits us the most. So rather than being a source of conflict, we can look at all of these different spiritual paths as being ways of enriching our understanding of spirituality and the world.
So wonderful to hear, Sitaben. Talking about different pathways, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, all originating in India, and world hardly knows about some of these traditions. Jainism, hardly anyone knows. And when we see Western media, it's hardly portrayed, these religions. It's like all these wonderful things, even the Sanskrit is like mother of all European languages. Our temples like Ajanta Ellora, a temple carved from the one whole rock. Such marvels of the world that is visible everywhere. And you see, you know, all these BBC documentaries on ancient Egypt, but India completely ignored. Are we seeing that Western media is purposely trying to keep the India in the back burner and not allowing, giving it the full dignity, the recognition it deserves, Sitaben?
Yeah, I think it can definitely be argued that that is the case. And because, you know, Indians are generally quite mild-mannered people, we don't go out there and become very aggressive or very violent. So I think people sometimes take advantage of that. And also the fact that it's in our nature to be so incredibly open. And when you look at other religions around the world, they're maybe not quite so open as Hinduism, and all the Indian religions are. And it causes a bit of an issue for them because they say, why are you so open? Why are we not so open? So I think in a way, it's kind of kept on the back burner. It's not given the prominence and the dignity that it should be given. But I think the world is changing a lot now, and people are looking for more ways to become spiritual without the tops and tails of religion. And I think the beautiful thing about Hinduism is that we are not fixated on books. We're not fixated on scriptures and rituals and thinking of God with form and doing all of these very, being very stickler about these things. We have this idea of just being spiritual for the sake of being spiritual through, you know, any sort of disciplined human endeavor. And that is part of Hindu teaching, that is part of Hindu philosophy. So I think people will start sort of exploring different religions, but also go beyond that and say, actually, I don't want the baggage which comes with the idea of religion. I'd rather just be spiritual. And I think, you know, there was this survey which was done recently, the Social Attitude Survey, and it showed that, you know, the number of people who follow or believe in a religion is dropping. But out of those people who are saying that they're not, you know, they don't want to have anything to do with religion, there's a growing number of people who are saying, actually, we are spiritual without the tops and tails of religion. And I think that's really where the world is headed now. And Hinduism is like, we're like beating our drum because we're like, yes, we've been saying that for so long. You can be spiritual without the tops and tails of a religion. You don't need to relate to God as a personality whatsoever. Just think of yourself and everyone around you as divine. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. So hopefully we can try and subvert what the mainstream media is saying and doing, and people will try and discover these different ways, because we're not so reliant on mainstream media anymore. We've got social media, we've got so many different avenues of understanding spirituality. And I think we can definitely make use of that in trying to sort of get around the mainstream sort of biases, which are very obvious. Vijay bhai?
I think there's one important point that Sita just mentioned, the idea of mainstream media. I think, Manish, part of the problem is not that people are adverse to Indian, Indian ideas or Indian, sightseeing or whatever. I think generally people around the world are quite okay. If you tell them, they'll say, yeah, it's worth exploring. But the media is a big issue because people tend to follow what media says. Plus, also, I think also in India, for the last 1,000 years, there'd be such a narrative being set that, India is only Taj Mahal. But actually, we know, Manish bhai, I know that the temples are far more beautiful than Taj Mahal. If you go to Chinnakeshwar temple in South India, the work of the chiseler, the Indian chiseler is like stunning. Or Ajanta Ellora you mentioned, right? But the thing is, I think now it's changing. India is going out and saying, look, guys, we have this wonderful stuff. And social media is playing a big part. We have amazing, like recently decided, I think a 51-day boat tour, which goes River Ganga, goes to Brahmaputra, and all that stuff. So India is now marketing. I mean, it's really strange. I went to, when did I go to holiday recently? I went to Lanzarote, right? I went to holiday with my kids 2 years ago. And they went to this popular tourist site. It was like a mountain, but it's not really much, just like a hill with a nice view of 2-3 islands. And the way they marketed it was so good. Everybody's going there, wow. I said, come on, in India, even just one temple can beat this particular little site. But the thing is, we haven't done that kind of marketing, or the media has been so far not been focused. But I think partly India has to make an effort. So look, we have all this stuff to see. And I'm pretty sure people in the world are not biased and such. They will come and see it. But India has to showcase itself. And that's now happening. It wasn't the case before, for whatever reason. And then if you showcase it, then I think it will change. And I think it is changing now. People want to go to India to see the amazing, temples, amazing, natural sites, the national parks. So it's going to change. And hopefully things will improve in that area.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
What an interesting topic now. When I was looking up the topic of spiritual democracy, it gave me some sort of a definition that it refers to the integration of spiritual principles and values in the functioning of a democratic society. And in particular, in context of India, it refers to the way in which the country's spiritual traditions, particularly Hinduism, has shaped its democratic values and practices. But, I have another way of looking at it. Spiritual democracy is like we were talking here. You can have the concept of not believing in God, believing in God with a form, believing in God without a form, believing in God as a principle, and a variety of other various shades of believing in yes or no, or your own flavor. As Jeba used to say, pick your own path, but it's your own journey. So that to me is spiritual democracy, allowing you the freedom to choose your own path without being defined or boxed in by where you are brought up as maybe you're born a Hindu, you're born something else, some other tradition you follow, but you have a choice as you grow and you make up your own mind which path you want to follow. So that to me is spiritual democracy. But I have a set of 10 questions. Now it's India Republic Day, so we're going to talk about Hinduism and India and how it has helped shape the country as over the years. So I'm going to do a rapid fire style of questions. I'll start with Vijay bhai. Vijay bhai, how has Hinduism influenced the development of democracy in India?
Oh, it's a lot. I think as Manish bhai just now mentioned, the Vaishali is one kingdom. There's quite a few kingdoms where they had the idea of, they had a panel of, leaders and people who actually elect them. So it has been there in ancient time in India. So India, even ironically, even in the political scene, you'd be surprised. India had many different ways to run a state, or in that one was like run by kingdom, run by a queen. There was some matriarchal systems where women run the little countries or whatever. So India had a wide variety of political systems as well. You'd be surprised. So I think that idea has trickled down. So for India, because we already have the idea of spiritual democracy, it wasn't that hard to pick up the idea of political democracy. And you would be surprised, if you look at the newspapers since independence to now, Western press especially, India is going to break apart, it's going to break apart. They can't live with so many languages. If Europe can't be one with many languages, like in Europe, we have Germany with German-speaking people, Dutch. And so India will break up, it cannot match because Europe is all scattered. It won't work. But ironically, India has worked because despite having diverse religious, languages, religious beliefs, because the ethos of plurality and allowing people to follow their own path kind of automatically, psychologically prepares you for the idea of democracy. Political democracy is the same thing, right? You don't agree with some views, but you live with them. You don't just fight and separate. So in a way, the whole psyche of Hinduism has helped to make India a successful democracy.
Fabulous. Sitaben, over to you for the next question, which is, can you give some examples of how Hindu spiritual leaders have advocated for non-violence and peaceful coexistence in society?
Yeah, so we're very lucky. We've got so many individuals, spiritual individuals throughout the ages who have come and sort of tried to imbibe this idea of spirituality and present it to the world. And obviously the one that pops into my head first of all is the idea of Mahatma Gandhi, because he is one of those individuals who tried to merge spirituality and politics, and he tried to imbibe the sort of Hindu philosophy of trying to show ahimsa, non-violence, to everybody around him, but in a way that can really make sure that we are not trampled on, make sure that our dignity is not compromised. So we've got individuals like Mahatma Gandhi, we've got Dayanand Saraswati, we've obviously got personalities like Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, who have all made different kind of contributions to the world, essentially. So we are an incredibly lucky nation in the fact that we are so enriched by all of the sort of teachings of these individuals, which can really help make the world a better place.
Awesome. Manish bhai, one question for you. How has the principles of tolerance, diversity, inclusivity been practiced in Hinduism, and how has it helped shape in the Indian society?
Yes, principle of tolerance and acceptance is in the Indian psyche, and that's it's been there for so long. Even recently, there was a Swaminarayan temple attack. Pramukh Swami, the leader of BAPS, came out and say, appeal for peace, and let's not fight amongst each other. Let's be peaceful. Let's accept, and let's move on. And this is so wonderful to see. We have been, plural by nature, and we have been accepting of all different religious traditions, and we believe in peaceful coexisting. And this is seen all over the world. Wherever Hindus have gone, they have been appreciated for their contribution all over the world. And this is visible, quite visible everywhere. Yeah, Nisit bhai.
Wonderful. So it is about maturing of this way of life. And that brings me to the next question for Vijay bhai, which is, how has Hinduism contributed to the diversity and pluralism in India? Manish bhai just touched upon that.
Yes, I think in India, I guess, because as we discussed earlier, the idea of accepting that there are many different ways to make spiritual progress, in a way, allows humanity to find their own path. I mean, it is very natural. No matter how hard we try to bring people to one set of beliefs, the human nature is such that eventually they go separate ways. If you notice one thing, even take example of Hindu communities, if you get a community that's really big, they break into two parts. It's just natural. That's how humanity is. In a sense, it's good because India, the whole ethos of India is the Hinduism believes that we can have many ways to make spiritual progress. Not only that, we have 4 major pathways of moksha: idea of karma, bhakti, jnana, and the idea of rajyoga. So even in that, we have different pathways, and they're all valid pathways. So people are given the option to use whatever pathway they want, and that in itself creates the idea of Hinduism in a way encourages diversity of beliefs in that sense.
Fabulous. So in India, we've talked sometimes how, for example, Hinduism is not taught in schools and is going towards a secular method. But Sitaben, can you help me understand that what role Hinduism has played in the development of India's economy and society? Because despite not being taught in schools officially, we are still a very spiritual / religious lot.
Yes, no, it's very true. I mean, I think it's really embedded in us the fact that everything and everyone around us is divine. I think that's something that's really part of Indian thinking. The fact that we revere trees and plants and everyone around us is really, really important. The thing is, however, the theory is one thing, but then the practice is another. And Dad said many times, the gap between the haves and have-nots in India is vast. But I think hopefully as time is progressing and, the economy is growing and the fact that women are sort of liberated in the sense that they're not stuck in the kitchen and looking after children anymore, they can go out and contribute to the economy. Hopefully this theory will start becoming more of a practice. The fact that there is equality between different genders, there is this ability to say that actually everyone is divine. We shouldn't have this idea of the caste system, which has been sort of infecting Indian society for so many hundreds of years. How can you say on the one hand that you are a divine nation, everyone is divine, and on the other hand you trample on the lowest castes? It's completely atrocious. And it's really good that India is now awakening to the idea that yes, everybody is divine, and it's sort of infiltrating into the politics of the country. So we have to be very grateful for that.
Superb. Now, they say that you are the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So society is more than just economics. We're looking at culture, and we're looking at things like, for example, moral values. And so Manish Bhai, the question for you is, how has Hinduism helped to shape the cultural and moral values of the Indian society today?
Yes, not just the Indian society, the Indian culture has spread to all of Southeast Asia, Pakistan as well. It's culturally Hindu. And if you go visit these places, the Hindu culture is there visible. Not sure what to say more. Vijay Bhai?
No, I absolutely agree. I think that in a way, I agree with you as well, Manish. Yeah.
Super. So the next question, Vijay Bhai, for you is that, Sitaben mentioned about the caste system. There was also women's equality issues, and there were many other things that were maybe in today's context of today's society, we may not see as very acceptable. So how do you think Hinduism has helped to address the issues of social inequality and injustice of the past?
I think the good thing about Hinduism, it actually moves on and it learns. It's not stuck in the past. I know many acharyas today, many gurus today who are actually encouraging the idea of breaking down the idea of discrimination based on the idea of varna, and they're fighting against that quite hard. All the gurus I've met, they're saying this should stop. And I know like my own father's group, they've actually set up centers where they actually interact with the Dalits. They actually do havans with them. So you have to get them involved. So there's a lot of practice taking place now. So in many ways, one thing, for some reason, there's a very big push on the basis of media against this Indian saying Indian is a caste system. What they forget, actually, Europe was not different just 100 years ago, not even far back. Just listen to me. It reminds you of some of the works. So I think it was Jung, I believe, Carl Gustav Jung, who said that we have the nobles, the knights, the merchants, and the serfs. So it was not different in Europe. So when they trumpet, they're saying India is no different. But I think key things like education, the work of the spiritual leaders changes society. And India is changing very fast. And I'm pretty sure the next 50, 30, 40, 50 years, this idea of the caste discrimination will totally go. Because in the cities, half of the people in India now marry somebody outside their caste. It's already happening, right? So it's going to change. I think the thing is that stick pretty much become too old to beat Hinduism. But the good thing is the gurus are not sticking. They're saying, look, yes, we accept, and we should work to change the society. And they're working very hard. I know a lot of people in the Some of the Hindu movements as well go in the tribal places, in the remote forest, and sit with them and try and uplift them, build schools. The one good example is the Anand Mahima tradition. They have built schools in Madhya Pradesh for the Adivasis, the forest people, who are kind of seen as very low status, and bring them up. So it's happening all over India. So I think it'll change. Yeah.
Amazing. So, we talked about how Hinduism has helped shape the country, how it has helped shape society. Now we come down to a question for Sitaben, which is, how does Hinduism approach the concept of individual rights and freedoms in relation to the greater good of the community? So there are so many things, like, we believe in the concept of tithing, karma. There's so many other concepts that help us as an individual and with the greater community around us. But please do share.
No, that's a really, really vast topic for sure. So, I mean, obviously we have this philosophy that everyone is divine, but we're sort of stuck in this body and mind complex, and we have karma, and we kind of do certain actions, we think certain things, we say certain things, which have an impact in the future. So all of our thoughts and words and actions have an impact on not just our own karma, but also on everyone else as well. So everyone's minds are interacting with everyone else's minds. And it's an incredibly sort of complex setup. But I think what's incredibly important is the fact that we recognize that it's the same spirit percolating through all of us. And that can really make a big difference in helping us make decisions which are very ethically and morally quite blurry. So, when it comes to issues around abortion and euthanasia and very, very difficult circumstances that people come across in their everyday lives, these sort of spiritual teachings can help to give us some kind of guidance. And I think the beautiful thing about Hinduism is that we say, actually, you are divine, so let your conscience be your guide in that particular circumstance. You can never whitewash any of these ethical and moral issues. You are divine, you make that decision, you are empowered to make that decision, and whatever you feel is right is the right decision. You have to follow your heart. So in that sense, it's very empowering, it's a beautiful message, and in those circumstances where you may otherwise feel lost, spirituality can sort of hold our hand and say, look, here is a possible solution. Remember, you are the spirit. Remember, you are divine. And any decision you do for the good of your family, the good of the community, is the right decision because you're operating with your heart.
Superb. What a wonderful discussion we've been having, folks. Please remember to put your questions in the comments area, either on YouTube or on Facebook. We have a little bit of time. Manish Bhai, I'm going to ask you one last question to wrap this up, which is, how is Hinduism adapting to the challenges and the opportunities of the modern world, such as globalization and technological advances?
Yes, Hinduism has been adapting really well with the modern world, and we have not, wonderful things. We have not been stuck in rut. We've been changing with times, and most Hindus have adopted the Western clothes and Western style of fashion, but we remain truly Indian Hindus. But the culture, the tradition is so strong. The Hinduism is with coming of the social media, all these wonderful messages, the Vedas, the beautiful temples of India, the languages, Sanskrit, all these things are coming to fore, and it's being available for everyone to see. So I think as a Hindus, we have, with the modern world, we have spread around the world, and with us, we have taken our culture, our food, our language, and everything, and it's being seen everywhere in the world. And that's a wonderful thing. It can only improve, it's gonna get better and better, I think.
Fabulous. Thank you all to my panel here of experts for answering these questions. It just helps us understand, the topic much, much better. From what you've mentioned, I see some advantages and maybe some disadvantages of spiritual democracy. And so let me just try and recap these from what I understood. So one of the benefits of spiritual democracy is it places an emphasis on moral and ethical values. And by doing that, it helps to create a more just and compassionate society within us. It also encourages peaceful coexistence by promoting values such as nonviolence and tolerance, we can foster a society where different groups of people can coexist peacefully and with mutual respect. It also promotes inclusivity. So spiritual democracy values diversity and inclusivity, which can help ensure that all members of society have a voice and are represented. And finally, I think it encourages critical thinking, because a spiritual democracy can encourage individuals to question and reflect on their beliefs and actions, which can then lead to personal growth and development. Now, there may be some disadvantages. I can think of stuff like maybe potential for conflict. So if you have different groups, spiritual groups that are competing in beliefs and values, can lead to some conflict and division. There's the risk of religious maybe fundamentalism, where if it is to impose one set of views over society, may restrict individual freedom. And then there's the risk of ignoring secular concerns. So spiritual values are good, but not to the point where they ignore secular concerns such as economic development, public health, and education. And the final thing is it could lead to reinforcing inequality in social society, basically, because without proper check and balance, you could potentially be marginalizing certain groups. So what an interesting topic once again to discover. Manish bhai, I'm going to leave it back to you to head over with the general Q&A. I'm going to pass you a couple of questions that the viewers have asked. And if we have time to answer them all, we can do it before 3 o'clock, or we can run over a couple of minutes if you wish to.
Thank you, Nisit bhai. I just want to wrap this over. There is, wonderful spiritual democracy we have in India, and it's going strong as possible. And with Narendra Modi ruling, we have a Hindu leader as well. How do we protect and progress forward onwards? There is, as Vijay bhai, Nisit bhai was saying, there is a drawback as well. Being open means you are open to all the challenges as well and all the negative things as well. How do we move forward with this, Seethaben?
Yeah, so I think the important thing to recognize is that, the downside, we have to recognize the downside. And the downside is that it can appear like a very sort of scattered initiative, spirituality, because you're like, oh, this goes and this goes. And then you're inclined to think that anything goes. But actually, Hinduism is not saying that anything goes. You can't just kind of invent a religion and say, hey, I've made a new religion, I've made a new sectarian movement. It doesn't work like that. They have to be tried and tested means, basically. And that's why I think the personality of Sri Ramakrishna is so incredibly important on the world stage now, because he wasn't just saying theoretically, oh, all these paths are equally true. He actually experienced them for himself. All the various sectarian movements within Hinduism, he was able to experience and try them and test them and say, yes, they come to the same conclusion. And same with other world religions, he was able to do the same. So it's not a case of anything goes. It's a case that there are a variety of different ways. We just have to make sure that we are recognizing the ones that are valid, the ones that are true. And it's not a case of just inventing anything and it's all willy-nilly, everything goes. It's not that. They have to be reconciled through an individual who is able to experience all of them and say, yes, they all lead to the same destination. Vijay bhai?
I think, Manish bhai, it's a very important question. I think how do you progress Hinduism without the negative? Well, you can't avoid the negative, unfortunately. That's human nature. You'll have some people who see the negative, some see positive. But nevertheless, we have to move forward, because now at last, I think people are getting aware of their own heritage. And because Indian government at the moment is more conducive towards allowing people to explore their own heritage, Hindu heritage, basically. So I think things will only get better. But yes, we have to keep in mind that we have to keep positive about it. And whatever takes us away, far away, not to get too much stuck in negative reporting, negative media, just try and ignore it and move forward. And that's the best way to defeat negative ideas, is to ignore them. That hurts them more than anything else. Just move forward. Yeah.
Wonderful. We'll take a couple of questions from viewers. Some random guy has asked, should we take Puranas literally, Vijay bhai?
No, please don't do that. Puranas are not taken literally. These are a collection of stories, they're vast in number. I mean, written by, as I say, Hinduism allows everybody to write any spiritual book that they want. But you have to use your own rational faculty and search out what is true, what is not true. But some of the stories which are in the Puranas, they're like superhuman stories, and really they can't really happen in real life. So take it in context for what they are, and get the moral message through it. Read it in an allegoric sense. And for children is wonderful. So please try and remember that it's not, you can't take them literally. Thank you.
I'll ask the next question to Sita Ben.
Yeah.
Ram Swarup Godara is asked how Advait Vedanta is authentic. It contradicts Vedas, where there is Tretavad, Iswar, Prakriti, Jivatma. Is Vedanta contradicting Vedas, and as he's claiming, Sita Ben?
No, I humbly disagree. The fact that the idea of Advait is part of the Vedanta philosophy, which is the end portion of the Vedas, all of the beautiful teachings of the Upanishads and all of that, all comes at the end portion of the Vedas, and it talks about the divinity of nature, divinity of ourselves. It talks about the relationship between Atman and Brahman and reconciling them together. So I think it's incredibly important that we recognize that something which is so sort of ethereal, very difficult to understand, to get a handle on, is the same thing that we have all the hundreds and thousands of gods and goddesses. It's a way of trying to relate to the same spirit. And the fact that, it's very difficult to get a handle on something which is beyond quality, beyond form, beyond anything that we can imagine. And we have the flexibility within Hinduism to say, if that's too much for our minds to understand, let us create these forms of gods and goddesses to help us get a better handle on this idea of spirituality. So it's not a contradiction in terms. It's actually showing that we are all different individuals coming from different pathways, coming from different journeys, and we all have our own way of relating to spirituality, and it's not a contradiction in terms. We are all different points on the circumference of a circle, and if you compare where you are on the circle with somebody else, it sounds completely different. But the whole point is that you progress on your journey, on your path, and by doing that you will find a greater affinity with everyone from other traditions as well. Vijay Bhai?
I think beautifully considered. Not much more to it. I think all I can say is that you mentioned the Tretavad, the idea of Ishwar, Prakriti, and Jivatma. That is, in a way, in Advait Vedanta, actually Ishwar and the Atma are one basically, and Prakriti is illusion. So it depends how you see it. But I think most acharyas accept the idea of Advait is the key message of the Upanishads. Yeah.
Okay, we got one question from some random guy again. He's saying, if there are scientific errors in Vedas, what should we do? Should we believe in science or Hinduism? I can quickly answer that. Vedas, we are as Hindus, we are not fixated on books. We have so many books. And if we find there are some factual errors, we can accept that. And that's fine. Move on with science. Let's accept if something really is not true. Don't accept it. That's what Jay Bhai said all the time. If you don't agree with something, he said, please don't accept it as well. So Hinduism, Sanatan Dharma is not religion of book. We are open system, and we have it allows us to use our rationality. Please do remember that. We take next question from Nasto, Hyderabad. He's saying how to clear stigmas like casteism and Manu Dharma. Vijay Bhai.
Okay, first of all, I'll take the Manu Dharma first. In India, nobody follows the Manu Dharma, let's face it. It's more popular in the West, with scholars beating India with a stick. Nobody cares. I bet you, as Jeba has mentioned, if you just pick some random 100 numbers from a telephone directory and call them, you'll be lucky to find one person with a Manu Smriti in the house. I have a copy because I teach religion, but nobody keeps a copy of Manu Smriti. And I believe if it is really weird, you don't even have to be an intelligent person. No, it doesn't apply today. Like he says, if you do X number of, if this kind of a crime, you have to give this many, coins and this many cows and this many goats. Nobody trades in goats anymore. So it doesn't even work. Even if you do, who keeps goats at home as money to pay for some sins? Nobody does it. So it's not even practically applicable. Forget, believing in it. But the thing is that very many law books, Manu Smriti is but one of them. I actually talked to some Brahmins who were surprised. I said, do you attribute to Manu? And not even one, actually the entire Bani, they use the Parasar Smriti actually. I'm very amazed that Manusmriti become so big in the West. Nobody, even the Brahmins don't care about this Manusmriti. So it's really bizarre. And some of the stuff in it is really strange and weird. I mean, it's so strange. You can't even think of some of the punishments they put in there. So I think the thing is, no Hindu follows it. If the West are obsessed with it, let them obsess and just boil over it. We don't really care anymore. And we have so many new law books which have come. All the modern Hindu movements have their own code of conduct. And I say most Hindus, whatever country they go to, they'll accept that the law of the country is the code of conduct that they base on. So the Manusmriti is way past itself by that. And the idea of caste system, as I mentioned, look, there's always been caste or class all over the world. It's not unique to India. But in India, the people themselves, the government is trying to, the people themselves realize, and they're changing. And one of the biggest things that changes is education. Education makes a big difference. So hopefully in the next 30, 40 years, it really go away. Yeah, that's all I can say to that. Sita, anything to add?
Nothing more to add. I think you've covered it. I mean, I think just Manusmriti is a man-made book and it's not the philosophy of Hinduism. Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful answer, Vijay. I just want to add that just by economically helping people, poor people, I think we can get rid of the all these problems. It just and it's happening naturally in India, so it's going on wonderfully well, and you see that in cities everywhere. Next question from Globert Banwart. He's saying, how can Hindus in general inspire the world in recognizing the roots of the world as we know it in this life? Sitawin, did you get the question?
Very roughly, I'll try my best to answer. So, I mean, I think the beautiful thing is that we are not a religion that goes out to proselytize or to convert. I think that's something really special about the Indic traditions. We never go out and persecute and persecute people. So I think the way that we sort of show what we are all about is by imbibing the spiritual teachings that we have inherited from all of these amazing spiritual giants that we've got who have come from India, by sort of imbibing this idea of giving reverence to life, giving equal dignity to all living beings. I think that's incredibly important. If we can sort of live those values, then we can sort of let the spirituality shine, and people who are genuine will be interested, they'll want to explore. So I think it's a beautiful way of presenting these ideas in the most gentle, in the most sweetest way, not imposing it on anybody, but just living those principles is hopefully enough to inspire others. Vijay?
Yeah, I think that I agree, absolutely agree. I mean, there's not much more to add in that. But I mean, again, as Sita said, because we don't go out and preach, but I think the world is changing. I mean, if you look at any great civilization which are fixated on a particular book, the Mayan, the Egyptian, the Sumerian, they've all gone and they've come and gone. And now even Christianity in the West is kind of going, because in a way people are looking for other means, not just following something. They want to explore for themselves, not to follow, be a kind of follower, but a leader. So it is changing naturally. So I think with social media and other kind of tools we have, the ideas of Hinduism are spreading. Doesn't matter if we don't use the word Hinduism, but the ideas of Hinduism are spreading around the world. So I'm pretty sure the ideas will grow. Yeah.
Fabulous. What a great session. We're coming up to a close, but I want to ask one last question to wrap things up. This is nothing to do with Hinduism, but Sitaben, you may be the best placed person to give us an answer on this. So Trushar Bhai has just asked us, what was Jay Bhai's favorite book?
Oh, a very good question. I have to say, I mean, it's just the first thing, and I'm sure this is what Dad would say, is the complete works of Swami Vivekananda. That was his driving force, that was his life. And the fact that, that is the thing that sort of drove him to setting up, first it was the Vivekananda Center, then the Hindu Academy. It was the works of Swami Vivekananda, because Dad was very sort of driven towards the idea of spirituality all his life. And he was searching and searching, and these books came into his hands and they changed his life forever.
Fabulous. So folks, thank you so very much for joining us today. Just a quick plug that if you haven't been following us on our social media channels, please do so on Facebook or YouTube. We are on the channel Hindu Academy. We would love to share more content with you. We do this on a weekly basis. There are videos coming out every day. And if you have the capacity to join our WhatsApp group, then you'll get your daily dose of inspiration in the form of a little clip sent out to you over WhatsApp. So I'd like to end with a quote. The quote is from Mahatma Gandhi, and the quote is that the spirit of democracy is not a mechanical thing to be adjusted by the abolition of forms. It requires a change of heart. That's a really good quote, I thought, relevant for today. We wish you a great week ahead. For those of you who are celebrating the occasion, Jai Hind, Happy Republic Day, and we look forward to seeing you next week at 2 o'clock on Saturday as usual. Thank you to the team again for an amazing session. Bye, everybody.